The desperate call, the holographic display flickered in the center of the Galactic Council chamber. Elder Moran's image wavered, his blue skin pale with fear, his 4 eyes wide with desperation. Behind him, the sounds of explosions echoed through the transmission. "Please," the Velnar leader begged, his voice breaking. "We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no armies. The Kral are killing us! They burn our cities. They take our children. We need help. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us." The transmission cut to static. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 40 different species sat in silence. Some looked down at their consoles. Others whispered to their aides. None moved to act. Counselor Thin, a tall, gray-skinned diplomat from the Axiom Collective, finally spoke. "The situation is tragic, but the Kral Empire is too powerful. We cannot risk war with them over one small colony." "Agreed," another voice added. "The Velnari chose to settle in disputed territory. We warned them of the risks." More voices joined in agreement. Sympathy was offered. Prayers were sent. But no ships, no soldiers, no real help. The council moved to the next item on their agenda, 3,000 light-years away. On Earth Station Prime, Commander James Ross sat in the war room and watched the same transmission for the 5th time. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched on the table. "They're just going to let them die," Captain Lisa Grant said quietly. She stood by the viewport, looking out at the blue curve of Earth below. "The whole damn council is going to sit there and do nothing. The council warned us not to interfere in galactic conflicts," Admiral Tom Baker reminded them. He was an old soldier with gray hair and scars from Earth's last great war. "We're still new here, barely 50 years since first contact. They don't trust us yet. Because we're from a death world," Lieutenant Mike Stone muttered. He was young, eager, angry. "They think we're too violent, too dangerous. But when people need help, where are all those peaceful civilized species?" Ross stood up and walked to the star map on the wall. He found the Velnar system, a small dot in the outer rim. "How long to get there?" 4 days at maximum FTL speed," Grant answered. "But, sir, the Kral have at least 6 warships in that system." "We'd be outnumbered." "We've been outnumbered before," Ross said. He looked around the room at his officers. "I joined the military to protect people who can't protect themselves. That doesn't change just because we're in space now." Baker sighed deeply. "If we do this, Earth could be expelled from the Council. We could face sanctions, economic isolation. And if we don't," Lisa said, "we have to live with ourselves knowing we let an entire species die when we could have saved them." The room fell silent. Outside the viewport, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. It was a beautiful planet, but it had never been kind to its inhabitants. Earthquakes, hurricanes, diseases, predators. Earth had tried to kill humanity for millions of years, and humanity had survived by learning to fight back. Ross made his decision. "Send a message to the Council. Tell them humanity is responding to the Velnar distress call. Then prep the fleet. We launch in 6 hours." "Sir, which ships?" Stone asked, already pulling up the roster. "The Defiance, Storm, Thunder, Iron, and Victory. 5 ships. That's all we can spare, but it'll have to be enough." The officers moved quickly, sending orders, checking supplies, plotting courses. Within minutes, alarms began sounding across Earth Station Prime. Crews rushed to their ships. Marines checked their armor and weapons. In the docking bay, the UNS Defiance waited like a sleeping giant. She was a heavy cruiser, built thick and strong, designed by people who knew war intimately. Her hull was layered with composite armor. Her weapons were simple but deadly. Railguns that fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. Missile pods loaded with kinetic warheads and point defense cannons. No energy shields like the other galactic races used. No fancy plasma weapons. Just good old-fashioned human engineering built to break things and keep going. On the observation deck, a group of alien diplomats watched the preparations with confusion and concern. They had come to Earth to discuss trade agreements. Now, they witnessed something else entirely. "They're preparing for war," whispered Ambassador Krell, an insect-like being from the Hive Collective. "Not rescue, war." "Humans don't understand the difference," replied Envoy Dalla, her tentacles writhing nervously. This is why the Council fears them. They come from a world that tried to kill them every day. They learned to answer every threat with violence. Krell's compound eyes watched as human soldiers marched into the ships in perfect formation. Perhaps the Krell should have considered that before attacking innocents. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Ross settled into his command chair. Around him, his crew worked efficiently at their stations. These were men and women who had trained their entire lives for combat. Earth might be at peace now, but humans never forgot how to fight. All ships report ready. Sir, Grant announced from the tactical station. Course is plotted, the navigation officer added. Ross touched his console, opening a channel to the fleet. This is Commander Ross to all ships. We received a distress call from people who need help. The Galactic Council has chosen to do nothing. We are not the Council. We are human, and we do not abandon those in need. Today we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. Today we answer the call. 5 ships came to life. Their engines burned bright blue as they lifted away from Earth Station Prime. Within seconds, they aligned in formation and jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving nothing but ripples in space-time. The alien ambassadors stood in stunned silence. Finally, Krell spoke. The Velnari asked for aid. Yes, Dalla agreed quietly. But the Deathworlders are bringing war instead. Neither of them could know how right she was. First blood, the human fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Velnar system. Immediately, alarms screamed across every bridge. Contacts! The sensor officer on the Defiance shouted. 6 Kral warships in orbit around the planet. Oh God, they're bombarding the surface. On the main view screen, the Velnar homeworld appeared. From orbit, they could see the fires burning across 3 continents. Debris from destroyed orbital stations drifted in clouds around the planet. And the Kral ships, massive and dark, hung like vultures over their prey. Commander Ross felt his blood run cold, then hot with anger. Get me a tactical picture now! The display updated. The Kral warships were huge, each one twice the size of the Defiance. They had heavy armor plating and what looked like plasma cannons. But they were focused entirely on the planet below, not watching their backs. They don't know we're here yet, Grant said from Tactical. We've got maybe 2 minutes before their sensors pick us up. All ships, battle formation Delta, Ross ordered calmly. Weapons hot. Target the 2 rearmost vessels. We hit them hard and fast before they know what's happening. The 5 human ships spread out, moving silently through space. The Storm and Thunder took the left flank. The Iron and Victory went right. The Defiance stayed center, her railguns charging. On the Thunder, Captain John Blake watched his targeting computer lock onto a Krail cruiser. His weapons officer, a young woman named Beth Park, looked up nervously. Sir, their armor plating is twice as thick as ours. Our kinetic rounds might not penetrate. Then we'll use more rounds, Blake said simply. Fire on my mark. Across the fleet, crews waited. Fingers hovered over firing controls. Hearts pounded. This was it. Humanity's first real battle in space against an alien enemy. Ross counted down silently, watching the distance close. 300,000 kilometers, 200,000, 100,000, all ships, he said quietly. Fire! The darkness of space lit up with fury. Railguns screamed, launching solid metal slugs at a fraction of light speed. Missiles streaked forward, dozens of them, their engines burning bright. The human ships opened fire with everything they had, and the universe learned what concentrated human violence looked like. The first Kral ship never knew what hit it. 12 railgun rounds slammed into its rear section in the span of 2 seconds. The slugs punched through the armor plating like paper, tearing through decks and systems. The ship's reactor containment failed. A brilliant white explosion bloomed in the black. The second Kral vessel started to turn, alarms finally blaring. But the Storm and Thunder were already on it, hammering it with missile strikes. The Kral ship's shields flickered and died under the kinetic assault. More railgun fire followed, precise and devastating. 2 down! Grant shouted. The others are turning to engage. The remaining 4 Kral warships broke orbit, abandoning their bombardment. They were massive ships, built for intimidation and conquest. Their commanders had destroyed countless worlds and never faced real resistance. They had never faced humans before. Evasive maneuvers. Ross ordered as plasma bolts lanced toward them. The Defiance rolled hard to port, thrusters firing. The superheated plasma missed by meters, close enough that the hull temperature spiked. "Return fire! Don't let them get a lock!" The human ships moved like fighters, not like capital ships. They twisted, rolled, and dove through space in patterns that seemed random but weren't. Earth had bred its warriors in 3 dimensions, on land, in air, and under sea. Space was just another battlefield. The Kral ships were bigger, stronger, more powerful, but they were slow. They fought like brawlers, standing still and trading blows. The humans fought like wolves, fast, coordinated, going for weak points. The Iron streaked past a Kral destroyer, firing its railguns at point-blank range into the ship's engine section. Metal screamed. Explosions rippled along the hull. The destroyer listed, losing power. 3 damaged, 3 still combat effective, Grant reported. Her fingers danced across her console, coordinating fire between all 5 ships. "Their shields are regenerating faster than we expected." "Then we don't give them time to regenerate," Ross said. "All ships focus fire on the flagship." "The big one in the center?" "Pour everything into it." The human fleet converged. 5 ships against 1, but that one was a monster, a Kral battlecruiser bristling with weapons. It fired on all sides, plasma bolts filling space with deadly light. The Victory took a direct hit. Her port armor buckled. And the ship spun out of control for a moment before stabilizers kicked in. "Victory reports heavy damage but still operational," the communications officer announced. "Keep firing," Ross commanded. Railgun rounds hammered the battlecruiser's shields. Missiles struck in waves, each one detonating in brilliant flashes. The shields held, flickered, held again, then finally collapsed. "Shields down," someone shouted. "All weapons, fire!" The concentrated firepower of 5 human warships struck the Kral flagship in a single devastating moment. Railgun slugs tore into the hull. Missiles punched through armor and detonated inside the ship. Secondary explosions began to chain through the massive vessel. On the battlecruiser's bridge, war leader Drax stared in disbelief at his displays. His ship, his mighty flagship, was dying. And he didn't even know who was killing him. "Who are they?" he roared at his tactical officer. "Unknown species, war leader. They're using primitive weapons, solid projectiles, chemical explosives. But the velocity—" Another impact cut him off. The bridge lights failed. Emergency systems flickered on. Drax had conquered 17 worlds. He had never retreated. But as he watched his fleet being torn apart by these unknown attackers, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: fear. "All ships, retreat," he commanded. "Jump to FTL now!" But the humans had anticipated that. The Storm and Thunder had positioned themselves between the Kral ships and their escape vector. As the damaged Kral vessels tried to run, they flew directly into a wall of railgun fire. One destroyer made it to FTL and vanished. The others were not so lucky. The battlecruiser, too damaged to jump, drifted dead in space. The remaining cruiser tried to surrender, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Cease fire," Ross ordered. "Storm and Thunder, secure that cruiser. Iron and Victory, start search and rescue for escape pods. Defiance will remain on station in case any more Kralls show up." As the battle ended, the bridge crew of the Defiance sat in stunned silence. They had just fought their first space battle against an alien empire, and they had won. "Commander," the communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet. It's Elder Moran." The view screen changed. The Velnar leader appeared, his face streaked with dirt and tears. Behind him, other Velnari stared in wonder and hope. "You came," Moran whispered. "The council said no one would come. But you came." Ross felt a weight lift from his chest. "We heard your call, Elder. Sorry it took us a while to get here." "Who are you?" Moran asked. "What species? We have never seen ships fight like that." "We're human," Ross said simply. "We're from Earth, and we don't leave people to die when we can help them." Moran's 4 eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Thank you." As rescue operations began, as human Marines landed on the Velnar surface to help with the wounded and displaced, the galaxy was receiving the first reports of the battle. On the Galactic Council Station, alarms went off. Emergency sessions were called. The impossible had happened. The humans, the Deathworlders everyone feared, had just destroyed a Kral battle group in less than 20 minutes. And they weren't done yet. The Kral learned fear. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the halls of the Galactic Council, ambassadors watched the battle recordings in shocked silence. The grainy footage showed human ships moving with impossible speed, their primitive kinetic weapons tearing through Kral armor like it was nothing. "How?" Counselor Then whispered. "The Kral have conquered dozens of worlds. How did 5 small ships defeat them?" Nobody had an answer. On the Kral homeworld of Drax Prime, the Supreme War Council gathered in their great war chamber. The room was dark, lit only by red battle lights. 70 war leaders stood in rows, their black armor polished, their weapons ready. At the head of the chamber, Supreme Commander Varkoth slammed his fist on the stone table. The sound echoed like thunder. "Explain this defeat," he roared. War leader Drax, who had escaped in the single surviving destroyer, stepped forward. His armor was scorched. His pride was shattered. "Supreme Commander, these humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They do not rely on shields or energy weapons. They use metal and explosives, launched at speeds our sensors barely tracked. Our armor could not stop them. Our shields were useless." "You had 6 ships," Varkoth bellowed. 6 ships against 5 smaller vessels and you lost?" "They moved like hunters, Supreme Commander, coordinated, precise. They knew our weak points before we knew theirs. And they showed no fear. Even when outnumbered, even when damaged, they pressed the attack." Another war leader spoke up. "They must be a warrior species." "What is their homeworld like?" Drax pulled up a holographic display. Earth appeared, spinning slowly, a blue and green jewel in space. "Their planet is classified as a Class 12 death world," Drax said quietly. "Extreme weather, violent tectonic activity, deadly predators, disease. The entire planet is a battlefield, and they evolved to survive it." The chamber fell silent. Class 12 was nearly the highest danger rating. Most species came from gentle worlds, protected and peaceful. A Class 12 world would kill most galactic citizens within days. How did they even develop civilization? Someone asked. "They didn't just survive their world," Drax continued. "They conquered it. Every creature, every storm, every challenge, they adapted and overcame. For millions of years, their planet tried to kill them. It only made them stronger." Varkoth stared at the image of Earth. "And now they are in space." "Yes, Supreme Commander. And they have made themselves the protectors of the weak." The Velnari called for help. The humans answered. "Then we will teach them the cost of defying the Kral Empire," Varkoth declared. "Send the 3rd Battle Fleet to the Velnar system. 40 ships. We will crush these humans and burn their precious Velnari friends to ash," War Leader Drax wanted to warn them. He wanted to say that numbers might not matter against an enemy like this. But he had already failed once. He simply bowed and stepped back. The Kral 3rd Battle Fleet began its journey toward Velnar space. On the surface of the Velnar homeworld, human marines moved through the rubble of what had once been a beautiful city. Dr. Jane Walsh knelt beside a wounded Velnari child, using a portable scanner to check for internal injuries. "You're going to be okay," she said softly. The child didn't understand English, but the gentle tone was universal. The young Velnari's mother held Jane's hand and wept with gratitude. Around them, more humans worked alongside the Velnari survivors. Engineers helped rebuild power systems. Soldiers cleared debris. Medics treated the wounded. It was hard work, exhausting work, but nobody complained. Lieutenant Mike Stone stood guard at a checkpoint, his rifle ready. A group of Velnari approached cautiously. They were carrying food and water for the human workers. "For you," their leader said in broken Standard Galactic. "Thank you for saving us," Stone smiled. "Just doing our job, friend." "The Council abandoned us," the Velnari said, his voice bitter. "They made speeches and promises but sent no help. Only you came. Only humans." Stone didn't know what to say to that. He just nodded and accepted the food. On the Defiance, Commander Ross stood in the war room with his senior officers. The holographic display showed the Kral Empire's territory, a massive swath of space covering dozens of systems. Intelligence reports the Kral are sending a larger fleet, Admiral Baker said via video link from Earth. At least 40 ships. They'll be there in 3 days. We can't fight 40 ships, Captain Grant said flatly. Not with 5 vessels. We'll be slaughtered. Reinforcements? Ross asked. Baker shook his head. The Council has forbidden any member species from helping us. They say we started this conflict and must face the consequences alone. Earth is sending more ships, but they won't arrive for 2 weeks. Ross turned to look at the planet below. Thousands of Velnari were still alive because his fleet had come. If they left now, the Krall would return and finish what they started. We're not leaving, he said quietly. Sir, that's suicide, Grant protested. 5 ships against 40? I said we're not leaving, Captain. Ross's voice was firm but not angry. We came here to protect these people. That doesn't change just because the odds got worse. Then we need a plan, Lieutenant Blake said from the Thunder. His face appeared on another screen. We can't win a straight fight. But we don't have to fight straight, Ross smiled slowly. Go on. The Velnar system has 3 asteroid fields. Heavy metals, lots of rocks, difficult sensors. We lure the Krall fleet in, split them up, and hit them in small groups. Guerrilla warfare, Stone added, joining the conference. Use the terrain. Strike and fade. Make them afraid to chase us. Grant pulled up a tactical map. The main asteroid field, Sector 7, is perfect. Thick enough to hide in, but with clear lanes for quick escapes. We could set traps, use mines, create ambush points. Ross studied the map. It was risky, insane even, but fighting 40 ships head-on was certain death. This way, they at least had a chance. All right, he said. We have 3 days. Here's what we're going to do. Elder Moran climbed the steps to the human command post slowly. His legs were tired. His people were exhausted. But hope had returned to Velnar, and it wore human faces. Commander Ross met him at the entrance. Elder, you should be resting. I cannot rest while my people suffer, Moran replied. I came to thank you again, and to warn you. Warn us? We intercepted Krall communications. A large fleet is coming, 40 ships or more. Commander Ross, you have done so much already. You saved us, but you cannot fight so many. Please, take your people and leave. We will not think less of you. You gave us a chance to evacuate, to survive. That is enough. Ross was quiet for a moment. Then he placed a hand on the old Velnar's shoulder. Elder, on Earth we have a saying. We stand with our friends no matter the cost. We came here to protect you. We're not leaving just because it got harder. But you will die, Moran said, his 4 eyes glistening. All of you. Maybe, Ross admitted. But we'll take a lot of Krall with us. And we'll buy you time to get your people to safety. That's worth dying for. Moran looked at this strange human, this warrior from a death world who had traveled across the stars to save people he didn't even know. The Galactic Council had called humans dangerous, violent, primitive. But standing here, Moran saw only courage and honor. Your species is remarkable, Moran said softly. We're just stubborn, Ross replied with a tired smile. Now go, Elder. Get your people ready to evacuate if things go wrong. We'll hold the line as long as we can. As Moran left, Captain Grant approached. The fleet is ready, sir. All ships are moving to Sector 7. Mines are deployed. Traps are set. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Ross nodded and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 40 Krall warships were coming for blood. Then let's show them what happens when you mess with Earth, he said. In the asteroid field of Sector 7, 5 human ships waited in the darkness like spiders in a web. Their crews were ready. Their weapons were loaded. Their resolve was iron. The Krall thought they were coming to finish a fight. They didn't understand they were walking into an ambush designed by a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. The Deathworlders were ready for war. Deathworld unleashed the Krall. 3rd Battle Fleet emerged from FTL space like a swarm of locusts. 40 warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one hungry for revenge. Supreme Commander Varkoth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conqueror. It was the largest ship in the Krall Armada, a behemoth designed to break worlds. Scan the system, he ordered. Find the human ships. His tactical officer worked quickly. No contacts in orbit around the planet, Supreme Commander. Wait. Detecting faint energy signatures in Sector 7, the asteroid field. Varkoth smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. They hide like cowards. Send 20 ships into the field. Flush them out. The rest will remain here to prevent escape. 20 Kral warships broke formation and headed toward the asteroid field. Their commanders were confident. They had overwhelming numbers. What could 5 small ships do? They were about to find out. On the Defiance, hidden deep within a cluster of massive asteroids, Commander Ross watched his sensor display. 20 ships incoming, Grant reported. They're spreading out as they enter the field. Perfect, Ross said quietly. They're dividing their forces for us. Wait until they're deep in the field, then signal all ships. We start with echo pattern. The Kral ships moved into the asteroid field cautiously. Space rocks the size of buildings drifted everywhere. Sensor readings were confused by the heavy metal deposits. Visibility was limited. This is foolish, Captain Marek said aboard the Kral destroyer Bloodfang. We should pull back and bombard the field from distance. War leader Varkoth wants prisoners, his second-in-command replied. We must drive them out into open space. Suddenly, their sensors screamed. Multiple contacts all around them. Contacts? Where? The asteroid beside them exploded. But it wasn't an asteroid. It was a mine, disguised with false readings and covered in rock dust. The explosion tore through the Bloodfang's shields. Before they could react, railgun fire lanced out from 3 different directions. The storm, thunder, and iron had been hiding in the rocks, powered down, invisible. Now they came alive with fury. The Bloodfang shuddered under the impacts. Return fire! Marek screamed. But the human ships were already moving, slipping behind asteroids, using the rocks as cover. The Kral fired their plasma cannons, but the shots hit only empty space and floating debris. They're using the asteroids like shields, the tactical officer reported. We can't get a clear shot. More explosions rippled through the Kral formation. More mines detonated. 3 Kral ships were already damaged, and they hadn't even seen most of their enemy yet. This is Captain Marek to all ships. They've turned the field into a trap. Pull back to... A railgun round punched through his ship's bridge. Captain Marek never finished his sentence. Supreme Commander Varkoth watched in growing anger as his battle group in the asteroid field took heavy casualties. Send 10 more ships to support them, he ordered. Supreme Commander, perhaps we should now. 10 more warships entered Sector 7. The humans had hoped for this. They had planned for this. As the reinforcements flew into the field, the Defiance and Victory emerged from the opposite side, behind the Kral formation. They opened fire on the rear ships, catching them completely by surprise. We're surrounded, someone shouted on a Kral cruiser. No, War Leader Drax said quietly from his position on the Eternal Conqueror. He had seen this before. We're not surrounded. We're being hunted. The battle became chaos. In the tight confines of the asteroid field, the Kral's numbers meant nothing. They couldn't bring all their weapons to bear. They couldn't maneuver their large ships effectively. And the humans used every trick they had learned from thousands of years of warfare on their brutal homeworld. The Thunder fired missiles that scattered into dozens of smaller warheads, filling space with explosions. The storm used the asteroids themselves, shooting them with railguns to send massive rocks tumbling into Kral ships. The iron played dead, drifting like debris, then came alive at point-blank range to devastate an enemy cruiser. And through it all, Commander Ross coordinated his small fleet with precision, moving them like pieces on a chessboard. Always one step ahead of the enemy, but the Kral were not fools. They learned quickly. They began to adapt. Human ship detected, a Kral sensor officer shouted. Bearing 270. It's the Defiance. 3 Kral destroyers converged on Ross's flagship. Plasma bolts filled space around them. Evasive, Ross ordered. The Defiance rolled hard, but she was a large ship, not as nimble as the others. A plasma bolt struck her starboard side. Armor buckled. Deck plates groaned. Damage report. Hull breach on Deck 7. Sealing now. Starboard railgun offline. Another hit, then another. The Defiance shook like a wounded animal. We can't take much more of this, Grant shouted. Ross's mind raced. 3 ships on them, closing fast. No clear escape route. The Defiance was hurt, but she wasn't dead yet. Ramming speed, he said quietly. Sir? Grant stared at him. You heard me, Captain. Full power to forward shields. Aim for the lead destroyer. Ramming speed! The Defiance surged forward, her engines screaming. The Krall destroyer in front of them suddenly realized what the humans were doing. They tried to turn, tried to evade, but it was too late. The Defiance struck the Krall ship like a battering ram. Metal screamed. Both ships' shields exploded in cascades of energy. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels, but the Defiance was built by people who understood that sometimes you had to hit harder than you got hit. Her reinforced bow plowed through the destroyer's hull, tearing it open like paper. The Krall ship broke apart. The Defiance, battered and bleeding atmosphere from a dozen wounds, kept flying. Still with me? Ross called out to his crew. Stunned voices answered one by one. They were hurt. Some were wounded, but they were alive. Good, Ross said, spitting blood from a cut lip. Then let's finish this. On the Eternal Conqueror, Supreme Commander Varkoth finally understood. These humans weren't just warriors. They were survivors from a world that had tried to kill them every single day of their evolution. They didn't fight for glory or conquest. They fought because it was in their very nature. Withdraw all forces from the asteroid field, he ordered. We regroup in open space. The surviving Krall ships fled Sector 7. Of the 30 ships that had entered the field, only 18 emerged. 12 had been destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had taken damage, but all 5 ships were still operational. Varkoth stared at the tactical display. He still had numerical superiority, but now he had something else too. Doubt. Supreme Commander, War Leader Drax said carefully. Perhaps we should reconsider this engagement. These humans— Silence! Varkoth roared. We do not retreat from primitives. All ships, battle formation. We end this now with overwhelming force. The remaining Krall fleet formed up in open space. 22 warships against 5 battered human vessels. The odds were still in the Krall's favor, but something had changed. The Krall warriors, who had been confident before now, looked at their sensors with fear. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, damaged, and bleeding. But they weren't running. They were coming straight at the Krall fleet, weapons hot, engines blazing. On every human ship, crews worked through pain and exhaustion. They patched holes, rerouted power, loaded the last of their ammunition. They knew this was probably their last battle. But if they were going to die, they would die fighting. All ships, Ross transmitted. It's been an honor serving with you. Let's give them hell. Thunder copies. See you on the other side. Storm ready. Let's make Earth proud. Iron standing by. They want to fight? Let's give them one. Victory here. For the Velnari. For humanity. The two fleets accelerated toward each other. In seconds, they would meet in a final, desperate battle. Then something impossible happened. Space tore open with massive energy signatures. New ships dropped out of FTL, dozens of them. But they weren't Krall reinforcements. They were ships from across the galaxy. Velnari merchant vessels, armed with whatever weapons they could find. Ships from the Axiom Collective, who had voted against helping but now came anyway. Even a handful of vessels from species the humans had never seen before. And leading them was a massive battleship, its hull marked with the symbol of the Galactic Council. A transmission came through. This is Counselor Then to all vessels. The Council has voted. The Krall Empire is hereby declared an enemy of civilized space. All forces engage! Supreme Commander Varkoth's blood ran cold as 40 more ships entered the battle on the human side. Retreat, he screamed. All ships jump to FTL now! But the humans weren't letting them go that easily. The 5 Earth ships tore into the Krall fleet with renewed fury. Around them, the Allied forces joined in. The Battle of Velnar lasted another 20 minutes. When it was over, the Krall fleet was destroyed or scattered. Supreme Commander Varkoth's flagship was a drifting wreck. The Krall Empire's legend of invincibility was shattered forever, and the galaxy learned a new truth. Never threaten the innocent when Deathworlders are listening. The message spreads. Defiance drifted in space above the Velnar homeworld. Her hull scarred and blackened, but her engines still humming. Around her, the Allied fleet worked to secure prisoners and collect escape pods. The battle was over. The Krall were defeated. On the bridge, Commander Ross sat in his command chair, exhausted. His uniform was torn, his face covered in dust and dried blood, but he was smiling. "Casualty report?" he asked quietly. Captain Grant checked her console. 43 wounded across the fleet. 7 critical but stable. "No deaths, sir. We didn't lose a single person." Ross closed his eyes and let out a long breath. "Thank God." The view screen flickered. Counselor Then appeared, his gray face showing something that might have been respect. "Commander Ross, the Galactic Council wishes to extend its gratitude for your actions. You have struck a blow against tyranny that will echo across the galaxy." "With respect, Counselor," Ross said tiredly. "We didn't do this for gratitude. We did it because it was right. Where was the Council when the Velnari were dying?" Then looked down. "You shame us, Commander. We chose safety over justice, politics over morality. We were wrong. Your species has taught us an important lesson today. What lesson is that? That sometimes peace requires the courage to fight. That neutrality in the face of evil is itself evil, and that perhaps we have grown too comfortable, too soft, while species like yours still remember what it means to stand for something." Ross was quiet for a moment. "The Krall will come back. They won't forgive this defeat. Then the Council will be ready this time," Then replied. "We are drafting a resolution now. The Krall Empire will face sanctions, blockades, and military action if they continue their aggression, and we owe that resolve to you, Commander. To humanity." The transmission ended. Ross stood up slowly, his body aching. "Grant, you have the bridge. I need to check on our wounded." In the medical bay, Dr. Jane Walsh moved between beds, checking on injured crew members. Every bed was full, but the mood was surprisingly good. Marines joked with each other. Engineers compared injuries like battle trophies. "Commander on deck," someone called out. "As you were," Ross said quickly. He stopped by each bed, thanking each person personally. These men and women had followed him into an impossible battle and survived through skill and courage. At the last bed, he found Lieutenant Mike Stone with his arm in a cast and a bandage around his head. "How you doing, Lieutenant?" "Been better, sir," Stone grinned. "But I'll live. Did we really just kick the Krell's ass with 5 ships?" "We had help at the end," Ross reminded him. "Yeah, but we did the hard part first. Wait till the folks back home hear about this. Earth is going to lose its mind," Ross smiled. "Get some rest, Mike. You earned it." On the surface of Velnar, the rebuilding had already begun. Human engineers worked alongside Velnari citizens, clearing rubble and restoring power. Children played in the streets again. The fires were out. Hope had returned. Elder Moran stood in what remained of the capital city's central square. Around him, thousands of Velnari had gathered. They wanted to see the humans, to thank them, to understand these strange warriors who had crossed the stars to save them. Commander Ross descended from a shuttle, accompanied by his senior officers. The crowd fell silent. Moran stepped forward, tears streaming down his blue face. "Commander Ross, there are no words in any language sufficient to express our gratitude. You came when no one else would. You fought when the odds were impossible. You saved our entire species from extinction." Ross felt uncomfortable with the attention. "We just did what anyone should have done, Elder." "But no one else did," Moran said firmly. "Only humans. Only the people from the death world called Earth. You will always be welcome on Velnar. Our children's children will tell stories of this day. We will never forget." The crowd erupted in cheers. The sound washed over the human crew like a wave. Some of them had tears in their eyes. Later, as the sun set over the recovering city, Ross stood alone on a balcony. Captain Grant found him there, looking up at the stars. "Quite a day," she said. "Quite a day," he agreed. "Lisa, do you think we did the right thing?" "We ignored the Council, started a war, put Earth at risk." "We saved millions of lives," Grant interrupted. "We stopped monsters from hurting innocent people." "Yeah, I think we did the right thing." Ross nodded slowly. "The galaxy is going to see us differently now. Not just as newcomers or curiosities, as warriors, as a threat." "Let them," Grant said firmly. "Maybe it's time the galaxy had something to be afraid of. Maybe then the bullies will think twice before attacking the weak." Across the galaxy, news of the Battle of Velnar spread like wildfire. In the Axiom Collective, politicians debated the implications. The humans intervened without council approval, but they were proven right. What does this mean for our authority? In the markets of the Hive Collective, traders spoke in hushed tones. They destroyed a Krall battle fleet with 5 ships. 5. What happens if we anger them? In the war colleges of a dozen species, military leaders studied the battle recordings. Look how they move, how they fight. We must update our tactics. The old ways won't work against Deathworlders, and on hundreds of worlds where people suffered under oppression, where colonies faced aggression, where the weak were threatened by the strong, they all heard the same story. The humans came. The humans fought. The humans won. 3 weeks later, Commander Ross sat in his quarters on Earth Station Prime, reading through reports. The Defiance was in space dock being repaired. His crew was on leave, recovering and reuniting with families. Earth had celebrated their victory. Parades in every major city, awards and promotions. Politicians gave speeches about humanity's place in the galaxy. But Ross couldn't stop thinking about the battle. About how close they had come to dying. About all the other people out there who might need help. His console beeped. New message. Actually, dozens of new messages, all flagged as urgent. He opened the first one. It was a distress call from a mining colony on the edge of the frontier. Pirates were attacking. The local defense force was overwhelmed. They needed help. The second message was from an agricultural world. A neighboring system was threatening invasion. They had no military. They were asking for protection. The third, the fourth, the fifth. They kept coming. Every message was the same. People in trouble asking for help. And every message was addressed specifically to Earth, to humanity, to the Deathworlders who had proven they would answer the call. Captain Grant entered his quarters. "You seeing this?" "Yeah," Ross said quietly. "There must be 50 distress calls here. Maybe more. Command wants to know how we should respond." Ross looked at the messages, then at Grant, then out the viewport at Earth, turning slowly below. Their beautiful, brutal, deadly home that had made them what they were. "We respond to all of them," he said. "We can't save everyone. We can't fight every battle. But we can try. We can show the galaxy that someone gives a damn about the innocent and the helpless." Grant smiled. "The Council is going to hate this." "Let them hate it," Ross replied. "The Velnari asked for aid. We brought war instead. And you know what? We'd do it again. Every single time. So we're really doing this? Becoming the galaxy's protectors." "Not protectors," Ross corrected. "Responders. When someone calls for help, we answer. That's all. We're not trying to rule anyone or build an empire. We just refuse to let evil go unanswered." Grant nodded. "I'll notify the fleet. We're going to need more ships. Then we'll build more ships. Earth has plenty of people who understand what we're doing, who grew up fighting to survive. We'll have volunteers." As Grant left, Ross turned back to the messages. 50 calls for help. 50 chances to make a difference. The Galactic Council had failed these people. The established powers had ignored them. But Earth wouldn't. Humanity wouldn't. He began drafting responses, prioritizing the most urgent situations, coordinating with other human fleets. It was going to be a long war. A war against tyranny, against oppression, against anyone who thought they could hurt the innocent without consequence. The Deathworlders were going to war. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for something the galaxy had forgotten. Justice. Epilogue. X months later, the Krall Empire signed a peace treaty with the Galactic Council. Their territory was reduced, their military was limited. Their days of casual conquest were over. The treaty was signed on Velnar, in a new building constructed with human help. Elder Moran presided over the ceremony, a symbol of how the weak could survive when others chose to stand with them. Commander Ross, now Admiral Ross, stood at the back of the room. He wore a new uniform, decorated with medals he didn't care about. What mattered was the work. His fleet had grown. 20 ships now, with more under construction. They had responded to 38 distress calls in 6 months. They hadn't won every battle. They had taken losses, but they had made a difference. Other species were starting to follow humanity's example. The Axiom Collective had formed a rapid response force. The Hive Collective was building defense stations near vulnerable colonies. Even the cautious council was finally taking action against aggressors. The galaxy was changing, and Earth, the tiny death world on the edge of explored space, was leading that change. As the treaty was signed and the ceremony ended, Ross stepped outside. The Velnar sun was warm on his face. Children played in the streets, Velnari children who were alive because humans had decided their lives mattered. His communicator beeped. New message. Another distress call, this time from a research station under attack. Ross smiled grimly. The work never ended, but that was okay. Earth had spent millions of years learning to fight, to survive, to protect what mattered. Now they would teach the galaxy what humanity had always known, that the strong have a duty to protect the weak. That evil triumphs only when good people do nothing. That sometimes the only answer to violence is greater violence in defense of the innocent. They had pleaded for aid. The Deathworlders had delivered war, and they would do it again and again, for as long as anyone needed them, because that's what humans did. The end.